What's up, basement dwellers? Welcome to another Podern Nerd, and we're talking Loki Season 2. In today's episode, Breaking Bread. Joining me from last week, Mr. Cheever.
It feels weird that you don't say, as always. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the giddy. It's weird to be back, though.
I pointed it out on the Ahsoka podcast we did. The other downside is I record these and I have a baby sleeping behind me, so I can't give the same 130% energy level I usually give in an intro of a podcast. But there's definitely different vibes from that aren't there from the Dace Man show. They'll be back, when I can put the baby in his own room. But we're back. We're talking Loki Season 2. We broke down Episode 1. Go back and listen to it if you haven't. And we're just rolling into the season with Episode 2. And the episode's called Breaking Bread. I assume...
Not Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Breaking Bread.
So if you were looking forward to Heisenberg or a Bryan Cranston cameo or meth, they are not in this episode. The episode picks up right where episode 1 leaves off, where Loki, Mobius, and Hunter B-15 are basically trying to figure out what's going on, get to Sylvie, and see how they can fix this mess. You and I talked before we turned the podcast on. The intro was kind of fucking confusing, was it not?
Right, like it kind of gets to the okay, what do we need to do next? To just, all right, we're walking through a portal talking about, we need to get to Brad. We need to get to X5. Where did this transition come from? And because we talked about it a couple days ago, and I did a rewatch before this, and they quickly mentioned it. It was more along the lines of, we need to find Sylvie, we need to find Brad, our X5. This is the last spot we get a hit from X5 10th pad. But that dialogue was so quick with a bunch of stuff happening visually that it was just so hard to digest in itself.
Yeah, it was a blink and miss it type scene. Which there's so many Easter eggs in this. First of all, Hunter X5 is now going by the name Brad Wolf, who is an actor, and he's acting in a movie called, what the hell is the movie called? Zarbus? Zaniac, which is a Thor villain. So here's a new twist on that Thor comic villain being introduced in the MCU. Oh, what the hell is that? Gotta love echo devices, and I'm leaving that in. I don't know what the hell I said, but it happened. But anyway, they're doing a twist to that Thor villain, which is kind of odd, but the MCU does take liberties because they don't. If they did, it was a shot for shot.
It was a tip of the hat. For me, it was a tip of the hat. Hey, we're not going to be able to. We don't have any plans for this in the MCU. It's not working for the long-term plan, but we want to acknowledge it.
Yep, and there's also
that's how I put it.
Another Easter egg in that scene that was part of the coming soon attractions. There was a Kingo poster in the background. From the Eternals, the Kamal, I can't say his last name. Nanajani. He was one of the Eternals.
The annoying guy from, what was the show on HBO?
Oh, Silicon Valley. I didn't know if you would know that reference.
Yeah. Oh my God, great show.
He's in Eternals, but definitely his Eternals character ends up being an actor at some point, and so they put a movie poster on that movie theater that kind of tit your hat at that Bollywood actor. So as you're going into X5's London premiere in 1977 on the Sacred Timeline, they're looking for X5, who has now become Brad Wolf. So how do you feel about Brad Wolf being integrated in the MCU in a completely different way?
This ticked me off to no end. Oh, okay. Are you ready? I don't think you're ready for this.
I highly doubt it because I had to as soon as they called him Brad Wolf, knowing that he was X5, I had to Google who he was because I knew it was an Easter egg to something.
Yeah. Well, my issue with X5 is this being Brad Wolf, Brad Pitt is the whole point of all the TVA agents in my brain, like I said last week, is that they get plucked from the timeline because you are no one.
Mm-hmm.
You are nothing. You're not going to create any disturbance if we take you and there's nothing happening. If X5 truly was a movie star and that was his spot in the sacred timeline, why did he get plucked?
What was
Because
his
that would mess. Yeah, why would he get plucked
what
from
was
the
his
timeline
branch
without
moment?
messing things up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what was
what was his branch moment? Because think about it. Because he just released that movie
Mhm.
prior to all of that. He gets plucked from the timeline. The movie doesn't happen.
Well, the movie still comes out, but there's no follow-ups. He's not at the premiere because he disappeared at the premiere.
Really?
Yeah, he was attending a premiere, and that's when Mobius and Loki approached him and chased
Well,
him
I'm
into the
saying
alley.
prior. I'm
Oh,
saying
oh, oh.
prior. I'm saying he who remains plucks him from the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's X5.
Yeah, and therefore, if he went and interjected himself, he couldn't interject himself beforehand because then he would have ran into himself.
And he would be creating an alternate timeline.
Yeah. So,
But it's notated at the beginning of the episode that this is a sacred timeline.
yes.
So how can you take an actor who makes movies, a star of movies, pluck him from the sacred timeline without anyone noticing?
Do you think he was an actor before he was plucked? Or do you think that he went back to the sacred timeline and decided, I'm going to be an actor? So maybe he saw some of the movie,
No,
like a Back to the
because
Future
he
type thing.
he makes a comment of when he's in the interrogation scene where he goes, "This is my life. This was my life prior to the
Hmm.
TVA. This is what's real." And that shocking that moment where they eat the pie, it simmers down my spine when Morbius just goes, "But what if it's good?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I would have missed out on all this good stuff. Like that's what bothers me. I don't
Yeah.
care if my life was bad. And that's what X5 was saying. This is my life. This is a good life. I want to be in my good life.
So do you think he took out the real Brad Wolf or the
Probably.
sacred timeline Brad Wolf and just stepped in? Like, okay,
Oh, that could
I'm
be.
not the
Yeah,
variant anymore.
that's true. And I could also be reading into this. I read into a lot of small details,
It's
but
confusing as
at the same
shit.
time, it's a Marvel show. Like it's part of the MCU.
I'm
All
gonna
the small things add up.
I'm gonna reel you back in because there's a
Yeah.
lot of small things in WandaVision that didn't add up to shit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to
Exactly.
rehash bad juju there, but one of our first review things we did, WandaVision was throwing out shit left and right, and nothing, like, you can tell they rewrote in like the middle of the season because nothing cashed out.
Yeah.
I don't think I would hope they took better care of Loki. But to your point, it's a valid question. How did he either interject himself into a timeline where maybe he wasn't an actor but then became
Well,
an actor,
sacred timeline.
or yeah,
How did he interject in the sacred timeline without creating an alternate branch?
yeah, or if he's the variant, how did he take care of his sacred timeline self to continue on with it? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of unanswered questions there that they gloss over because they
Yeah.
immediately do a bit before the logo kicks off and the intro that they capture him and bring him back to the TVA.
Yeah.
They don't really interrogate him of like, why did you choose to do that? Or why did you choose to go there? Or how did you do that? It was more like,
Yeah.
what do you know about Sylvie and what Dox is doing?
Exactly. Those are and the temp pad. What's the temp pad doing? Where's Doc? Where's Sylvie?
Yeah.
Those were the three questions that he needed answered.
So the only thing he does ultimately admit is that he abandoned Doc's mission um, because he saw what was happening. And I'll just throw it out there now. Doc's mission is basically to revert back to the sacred timeline and only have one timeline. And so that's the mission. We're not jumping too far ahead with that idea. He sees this, and you can tell that he kind of buys into like the variants had a life, and it's kind of wrong that the variants are being to like set out the pasture. So he decides to interject himself in the sacred timeline, which causes your questions that happened of like how, why, what happened to the sacred timeline version of you then.
Yeah.
So the interrogation scene is pretty interesting because X5 in the first episode, he felt like typical military brass, second in command henchman.
Yeah.
He now has charisma and has like I would say banter, and like he doesn't have sidekick vibes anymore.
He's liberated from the sidekick
which also
position to be his own person.
Which also makes you wonder how long was he in the sacred timeline? Like they found him in 1977, but did he maybe go back further, or like what the hell happened? How did you feel about the interrogation scene? Because he takes a lot of shots. Brad Wolf takes a lot of shots at all three of them.
Well, he doesn't hit what's her face.
B-15.
Yeah, he doesn't really touch on B-15. He hits Loki hard, especially with the "you're a villain, you will always be a villain, and a loser at that."
And you bring sadness.
Exactly. You lost your mom. You lost the Battle of New York. You lost Asgard. Like you have nothing. And the fact that Tom, like this, like beautiful acting from Tom Hiddleston, for both interrogation scenes, like that deserves an award all in itself.
It's interesting because like he starts referencing basically Loki's backstory, and us as a viewer know nothing about Brad Wolf at this point, except that he put himself back in the sacred timeline. And to your point, was poking and prodding of like, look, you think you're meant for what glorious purpose,
greatness,
yeah, and you do nothing but lose and bring worse things to fruition. You don't better anyone's life. You're a murderer. Like you don't give two shits about collateral damage. And basically like saying, why are you dying on this hill of don't prune the branch timelines type thing. So they go through that first interrogation scene and basically come up short. So they go back down to talk to OB, who we find is doing everything in his power to try to accommodate with the loom, the branching timelines, but then finds out he can't access it. So we talked about this in episode 1 where we think there's more to OB than being let on. Him not having access and it basically needing Ms. Minutes or He Who Remains to do it.
I think that's a red herring.
Okay, so you don't think he gets him off the hook? Because we talked about him possibly being like a Kang variant.
Yeah. Not to derail you for a second, but I'm going to derail you for a second.
That's fair.
The guy that wants his book signed.
Eugene Cordero is his real name. I don't know what his fucking character
is. That guy. I think he's gonna go up to the computer and just hit enter, and it's just gonna open the blast.
It's interesting that like so I'm a big fan of Tacoma FD. So we're getting off the rails a bit here.
It's okay.
He didn't return for season 4, which was kind of a bummer because I liked his character Andy on that show. They replaced him with someone called Mickleberry. They worked themselves out of the hole, basically excusing him to go shoot Loki. So then you see him in episode 1, and I didn't get a vibe of like, oh, this guy's going to play a main role. He just happened to be someone Loki had interacted with in season 1, so they just wanted him to interact with him in season 2. This episode takes him and now interjects him as like, oh, no. If you think OB is hard to understand or talk to, Eugene's character has deciphered it because he's memorized the handbooks and everything. So he can be an integral part of like a translator between OB and everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the way to like phrase this, but his character, you now have two OBs, if that it makes sense. You have a OG OB and like a lesser version OB.
I think you have more of a
Oh,
what's
his
the word I'm
character's
looking
name is
for?
Casey, by the way.
Okay. I feel that you now create an opportunity to kill one
Mm-hmm.
to create managed chaos
Well,
in a
I,
sense.
I I'm gonna kick it back to what we were talking about in our first recap. This to me throws more wood in the fire that OB is gonna turn. Because now you have someone who can counter his intellect knowing how the TVA works. He might not know everything. The Casey character probably only
Okay.
knows, we'll say, 80%. So if
Yes.
OB turns out to be someone who's against them, at least you have the Casey character to fill some of the holes that Loki and Mobius would probably take a whole season to get to. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It does make sense. And to add to that point, look at where the loom is. Like
Hmm.
that workstation. It's a workstation. There's multiple people supposed to be working on that.
Hmm.
So what if Casey was an original worker that worked in that section of the TVA, mind wiped, but he still retained all of the knowledge on how to like work all the technology.
The,
Just lost the knowledge of his first iteration in the TVA.
the only counter I would have to that, and it might just be an oversight and it was done on purpose. OB didn't immediately recognize him. He recognized Mobius.
No, but now here's the thing though. I don't think I still think that was part of Loki's time slip in episode 1.
Okay.
Because he probably said, hey, like Mobius's name, he may not have like put like the memories might not have started forming yet, but he's like he knows this person. He knows
Hmm.
the word Mobius was here. And then as Loki's talking in the past, it kind of solidifies like, oh yeah, this is what happened in the past. Because it's the Back to the Future type rules.
Hmm.
Of you interact with the past, it's going to affect the future. Your
Okay.
kids will never be born.
So then Paul
So
Rudd's line of Back to the Future was total bullshit, and an Endgame was just for pure comedic value.
yes, exactly.
So the key thing that OB's trying to do is to fix that loom to accommodate all the branching timelines. Um, but the big plot device that's happened in these last two episodes is Miss Minutes is MIA. Now we knew
Yeah.
Renslayer was MIA because we knew that there was the connection between her and He Who Remains. But why do you think Miss Minutes, who presumably was just AI that helped out TVA, like the stupid paperclip that shows up in Microsoft Word, um, is sentient for starters, and just has decided, nah, fuck it, TVA is on their own.
I think, and this is where we're going to get real. I love jumping into the deep part of the swimming pool. Is was Renslayer a romantic partner with He Who Remains?
Uh, Comic wise, yes.
So would it not be Miss Minutes is a form of Renslayer, and they're looking to protect He Who Remains? Because who's to say He Who Remains really truly died?
Valid point. Because it
Who's to,
is kind of weird that his death just immediately started the branching.
and
Like,
it just wasn't him just because they say in episode 1 who ordered the stopping of the pruning of the branches.
yeah, so the proning just
And
stopped.
if they all learn that they're variants and they just stop
Hmm.
pruning branches, of course they're going to grow. It's going to splinter like that.
Yeah, but
So
it
who's to say
coincided
He Who
with,
Remains really died?
because the last scene in one of the last scenes in season 1 is the moment he's stabbed. You see the branches beginning. In theory,
Mm-hmm.
those branches could have began before he was stabbed because B-15 and Mobius were already back at the TVA picking up the storm of We're all variants.
Or he planned, because he talked a lot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he knew the timing. He could have timed it to make that stab happen the same time everything everything splits.
Because I assume he truly sits outside of the time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Because we talked about in the last episode that TVA might be their own time thing
Mm-hmm.
because they're running parallel and they'll pop in to prune the branches. But to your point, someone had to make the call to stop pruning. Do you think it was that council after they noticed that the head was cut off of this robotic timekeeper?
Well, B-15 does, during that meeting, B-15 does go, hey, I did order it because we don't know what's happening.
Okay.
These are lies. Is this like truly the humane thing that we were told that we are doing? It was that moral crisis that was
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Well, ultimately, the focus of this episode, not to harp too much on OB, because I'm sure we're going to get more of that the next episode, because they have a pretty
I don't think
important.
so.
Well,
I don't think we're gonna have OP at all next episode.
we'll get there. So basically, they go back to interrogate Wolf one more time, and then after having some key lime pie, which is the greenest pie I've ever seen. And literally took me out of the episode to discuss key lime pie with Jess to just like is it really supposed to be that green? Anyway, they come back and they do the good cop, bad cop routine. In a more complicated sense of just letting Loki be Loki and intimidate Wolf into giving them the answer. And eventually he shows them where Sylvie is after doing some master manipulation there.
Yeah.
They show up at Sylvie at the McDonald's. A lot of product placement going on. Mobius still wants more pie, which makes you think that Owen Wilson's probably not the best candidate to play Mobius because he'd be fat as shit eating all that pie. And Wolf is terrified of being there.
Yeah.
He basically said, "All right, I showed you. Let me go back," because he knew what was coming.
Yep.
Loki and Sylvie have their conversation. Basically, why'd you do what you did? Blah blah blah. That type thing. Like you don't know what's happening. You don't know. Like everything's going crazy. Like we have to figure this out. And basically, Wolf eventually, or Mobius gets out of Wolf what was going to happen to the timeline. Because Sylvie was in a branched timeline. She was hiding, not in the sacred timeline. They specifically pointed out that she was hiding in a branched timeline.
Yep.
What did you think of that whole interaction at Mickey D's?
Well, as someone that used to work at Mickey D's,
you don't get breaks. So this is
you don't get breaks.
bullshit.
You don't get breaks. I thought it was touching. It was, the thoughts I had was, it's like talking to your ex-girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
for the first time in like years, and it's that awkwardness of, hey, how you doing? But by the way, I have herpes. You should get checked. um, it's just, and it's just like that tension was there. It's building, and if this is 6 episodes long, you didn't need to really drag. In my opinion, you didn't need to drag out the drama.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty happening all at once right now, and you like they could have taken that tension, done a better job in the opening scene. They could have done a little bit more rounded ending for the episode in that 5 minutes that happens. Break it down 2.5 minutes each.
Yeah, and made the next scene a little bit better. I didn't hate it, but it seemed really quick. That they find Docs, they see that Docs, her mission is she's sending these rogue TVA agents to set detonators off in all the branch timelines, and basically reset the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
So they get there and like they're late as fuck. And they get there, they're not noticed, which I thought was weird because they're not really hidden. And
Yep.
then they just fuck shit up real quick. How did you
Yeah.
feel about the fight scene? Because I felt the fight scene was rushed, and to your point, the scene before it was drug out.
Yeah. The timing wasn't right. The timing was off. It was fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
right? For like that's the action part of the MCU, right? You want to see the bad guy get punched, you want to see the good guy win in the end. So it hits those benchmarks, but at the same time, like if I were to grade it, it's like a C. Like
Yeah.
you just did the bare minimum to get a pass.
Yeah, and then ultimately they captured Dox, but most of her allies or the people that were helping her escaped into the branches that they didn't prune, I guess. Because they said they escaped, but like if you're pruning branches, where the fuck did you escape to without causing a new branch? So they bring Dox back, and they basically walk into like the lobby and see the screen where all the branch timelines are now receding because of what Dox was doing.
Shivers up my spine.
It was
Shivers up and down my arm. Everyone still, oh, fantastic.
everybody too. Like OB's there, Casey's
Yeah.
there, and it's just there's a moment in that scene before the moment that you're talking about was the chef kiss that Casey has tracked the rogue Renslayer Tempad to one of the remaining branch timelines, which is teeing up where episode 3 is probably going to go. And then Sylvie basically takes the Tempad she stole from Kang, because I'm not going to keep saying He Who Remains, and went back to the McDonald's. But there's that powerful moment where B-15 is like, they're all people and they're all gone.
Yeah.
Do you think it was really fucking quick to prune all those branches? Because I have thoughts about it, but I want to know what your thoughts are.
Well, so when you say it was too quick to prune all those branches, like Doc just going in and just obliterating everything, or how they just kind of just, oh, these branches, like, so define quick.
So by the end of episode 1, she's moving out with her plan. End
Yeah.
of episode 2, she did it.
I thought pacing fantastic.
So you enjoyed the speeding up of it?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Doc wasn't the big bad of this. It isn't the big bad of the series. It's
She's,
Kang.
yeah.
So everything that happens from here on out, from episode 1 to the end of season 2, is Kang is involved. All the Kangs coming back have to get involved, and that sacred timeline is the focal point of everything. So
Now,
by just having an episode of we're going to reset it, it adds that stability to the storyline without it being too absurd and unmanageable writing wise.
well, the only problem I had with it, it makes OB pointless in this episode. His entire mission was to repair the loom, and then he hits the we'll say the hurdle of we got to find Ms. Minutes to open it, otherwise we're screwed. And then basically by the end of the episode, well, we decided, like, as a writer, Dox is going to do successfully, we'll say 75% complete her mission, which now means there's probably only 25% of the branches are left, which shouldn't put that much stress on the loom.
But now to add to all of this is that the other branches will start spawning out as well.
The branches that
the
remain will
majority,
keep going.
well, they'll keep going, but new branches could still pop up, because if they don't prune new branches that pop up, then those branches will continue to grow, which means they're going to get to the same point that they did in another episode.
Okay. So that's pretty much episode 2 in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Episode 3 is clearly pointing that they're going to go track down Renslayer, which will probably be like a Renslayer backstory / maybe reveal the plan, because at the end of the next episode, it's halfway through.
Yes. So my thoughts. It's not going to be a Renslayer backstory.
Yep.
We're going to go to Victor Timely.
Okay.
We're still owed a Victor Timely, but
So
the trailers has him.
There is
they've been building this up.
There's an interesting note about the next episode.
Okay, what's the interesting note?
This entire season's written by Eric Martin.
Mm-hmm.
The next episode has 2 other writers on it as well. Which every other episode is written solely by Eric Martin. The next
including
episode,
season 1.
I didn't check season 1, but season 2 wise, Eric Martin is the only writer. Season 1, he only wrote 1 episode.
Okay.
Anyway, there's 2 other writers that'll be there.
Yeah.
And it's written as the teleplay is by Eric Martin, Kasra Farahani, Jason O'Leary, but the story is by Eric Martin. So to me, I think you're onto something with the Victor Timely.
Yeah.
They usually, when they have to integrate things, have multiple writers on that episode. If it's just a sole story for the character, it's usually 1 writer. But then you start seeing like the Russo brothers get a credit or something like that. You know that
it goes back to the Infinity Saga.
So I think the Victor Timely thing is like the next episode is going to have some implications.
Yeah, and they hinted at it. Opie hinted at it. We need Miss Minutes to come back.
Mm-hmm.
They said it. We're tracking all the temp pads manually.
Do you think that Sylvie will be in the next episode? I do think we're going to get more Sylvie, but do you think she's pretty much benched for the next couple episodes?
I think she's benched for the next episode.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it's going to be Owen Wilson, Loki, looking for Victor Timely.
Okay.
And towards the end, it's going to pull Sylvie back in. Something's going to happen at the McDonald's that pulls her in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, like, I don't know, the sky turns orange or something stupid like that, right? And she goes, oh, that's the timeline splitting. Like, okay, we got to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And then episode 4 would probably be more along the lines of, okay, now we know where Miss Minutes is, and they revealed the plan with Miss Minutes in episode 4.
I do think it's interesting. The last 3 episodes, so episode 4, 5, and 6, have the same directors, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They did episode 1 in this season.
Okay.
And they have Eric Martin. He's been a writer he is a writer for the whole season. That like, okay, the 3rd one's going to integrate stuff. 4, 5, and 6 is going to be the drive it home. The Victor Timely character hasn't appeared yet. Miss Minutes is MIA, and Ravonna Renslayer is currently MIA. Where do you think this is going?
He Who Remains.
Yeah, it's a good point. Where do you think this is going?
The Kangs have to come back. At some point, the Kangs have to come back.
So you think at the end of this, the council is not going to run roughshod? Because we are, I wouldn't say halfway through phase 5, but we're 3 or 4 projects in.
Mm-hmm.
Guardians stood alone. Ant-Man kicked it off.
Yeah.
And Secret Invasion stood alone as well.
Yeah.
This needs to move the wheel.
It does. And I believe we'll see one of the 3 Kangs from the Ant-Man post-credit scene will pop up.
I hated those 3. I understand why they did it, because they're basically those are the 3 that were retconned in the comics, but yeah, I don't want to see Rama Tut. But if they end up in Egypt and they somehow bring in Apocalypse and the X-Men, I'm cool.
They have to. Well, yeah. Now they can bring the X-Men back. Yeah. So they're building something, and this is the project that again Marvel needed to revitalize the brand with.
And I'll ask this probably at the end of every one of the Podern Nerds we do.
Okay.
The last episode is November 9th, 2023.
Yeah.
Ms. Marvel will hit theaters November 9th, 2023 for that Thursday night screening.
Ooh.
Any implication? We did this with everything else too when we would talk about a Marvel series. Any implications from Loki season 2 in the Marvels? I'm gonna go with no.
No, why? No, yes. The answer is yes.
You think there's going to be an implication from Loki into the Marvels? What do you think?
Yes.
Because I can't. Because to me, it's just a space mission with Nick Fury. So if anything, it might bring in Secret Invasion.
Well, it'll bring in Secret Invasion. It'll tie Secret Invasion together, and it'll get Nick Fury back to Earth.
Well, he's on the sword spaceship outside of Earth, so he's still within the area.
Well, he's not on Earth. He
He's
needs to be
Earth
back on Earth.
adjacent. Earth
He's
adjacent.
Earth adjacent, but he's not on Earth.
Yes, that's fair.
Because the next Avengers that happen, he needs to be there. Because
There
the
has
next
to
Avengers
be.
isn't going to be in space unless they teleport everyone all at once.
Right now, the only two people who know of the big baddie Thanos threat are Paul Rudd's Ant-Man and Loki.
Yeah, but he thinks he's dead.
Yeah, Ant-Man thinks it's not a big baddie because he took care of it. The only thing that lingered in his mind was the idea of like, what if he was telling the truth that there was worse variants of him? Loki knows there is. So at some point, Loki has to be reintroduced to, we'll say, the sacred timeline that alerts these people.
Yeah.
How do you think Loki shows up in the Marvels?
Post-credit scene.
Okay.
He walks onto the spaceship and he turns to Nick Fury and he just has his hands up with Sylvie wrapped around him and goes, "You need to hear me."
It should be contentious because as far as we know with their relationship, Fury has only interacted with Loki in the first Avengers.
Correct. But
he doesn't know the redemption arc.
But Thor may have said something to him in Endgame, or post Endgame.
Unless they do a scene that kind of shows that, I think the fair assumption is that Sam Jackson's going to treat him like he treated Anakin in Star Wars. So
yes, but that I would put money down, and we're gonna clip this little soundbite. Loki will be in the post-credit scene of the Marvels, or
I hope you're right.
Or the Loki post-credit scene will tie into the Marvels, or the third option, the trailer for the next Marvel movie will be at the start of Ms. Marvel.
Well, that's the problem. So after Ms. Marvel, which is November 10th, right now all we have on our slate is Echo, which will debut January 26th on Disney Plus. They're not going to give us all at once now because of the writer's strike and the actor strike because they're trying to stretch.
Yeah.
But the next, so I wouldn't say Echo is a game changer because they classified her as the street level Marvel hero. So basically, it'll move a plot in New York maybe, but not a plot in the overall universe. The next one would be Deadpool, which is currently at risk of not making their May date because the actor strike's still going on.
I thought it was still going to make its due date.
They were halfway through filming. I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't know. Maybe half is the percentage, but they were not finished filming yet.
Okay. I thought they were done. I thought they were close to wrapping up.
Maybe. I honestly, all I know is that there's a potential that they don't make their May deadline. So the projects after the Marvels would be Echo, Deadpool in May. So you're going to have a big gap between, I'll assume, February and May before you get Marvel content. And then you go into Captain America 4. Which
in summer 2024?
July.
That's not bad.
They were supposed to be the May date, but Deadpool got to jump on filming quicker.
Yeah.
So it's the you're in phase 5. There's still so much to build to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. I assume the names will probably change because they're probably panicking. We'll be dead because it'll come out in 2028.
Yes.
Do you feel confident with where this is going?
I feel pretty confident. I was always a fan of Loki, of all the TV shows. I was a huge fan. I feel that, like I said, like this is going to rebrand and hype. If they keep going down this path, they need to stop with the shitty Phase 4 movies that they had.
I wouldn't even say
they weren't bad. Sorry, like I'm giving them less credit than they deserve. They were good movies, but it wasn't the formula.
The problem is, and you got to compare Phase 4 to Phase 1.
Yeah,
they're rebuilding characters. They're giving you new characters. We didn't know we were getting Thanos in phase 1. We knew we were getting Kang in phase 4, which is a little unfair because now you're like, all right, move that story forward.
Yeah.
So they kind of shot themselves in the foot because Thanos was just a post-credit scene at the end of the Avengers after 5 years of going through phase 1. Now we're like, oh, we
They should have
expect
held
that.
off.
Yeah, we expect
they should have held off.
But
Unless it was red herring all along.
Doom is the main villain.
Yeah, I'm just a dick at this point.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on Loki episode 2. We got episode 3 popping out next Thursday, and we'll probably drop you an episode at the latest by Sunday or Monday. Just give you time to watch it, give us time to digest it, possibly rewatch it, and then get back together to talk about episode 3. And see who was right, who was wrong, and if this is disappointing, because it'll be the halfway point at that point.
It's not going to be disappointing.
I am want to be optimistic, but I've also watched WandaVision, so that's how I judge everything now. Anything to plug, buddy? Like you said, we've talked about this last episode. We're just getting BPP back on their feet and have ideas. So
I got some ideas marinating in the back of my brain.
Nice. So you can listen to these on, obviously you're listening to this if you're at this point on Spotify. But we also have a YouTube page, which is at BPP Podcasts on YouTube, which will be collecting all our podcasts. They're currently going through and uploading all the previous ones. We're trying to segregate it. So if you're just a fan of our podcasts, you can just catch that stuff there. But they'll also have a section at the bottom that links you to the other stuff we're involved in, because we are multifaceted entertainers. We can eat, we can comedy, we can review. We even tried a game. So we'll see what happens. But BPP Podcasts on YouTube, and you can listen to this podcast and all our previous Podern Nerds wherever podcasts are available. So I've been Chris the Dace Man Dace. He's been Cheever.
Yeah.
I still don't have an outro. If you guys want to write me an outro and send it to me, actually, you know what? If you listen to the podcast and you've gotten this far into it and you have a clever outro or just want me to say something fucking stupid at the end of the episode, send it to me. Tweet it at the BPP official. Tweet it at the Dace Man. Tweet it at Cheever212. And we'll say it at the end of the episode of episode 3.
Or donate to our Patreon.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have one of those yet.
I know, not yet.
We have a PayPal. I think we have a PayPal. We have a website. We have PayPal. We're rebuilding everything. So you go to the website, and I think you're going to find everything we used to do. If you liked it, I'm sorry we don't do it anymore. If you hate it, we're not those people anymore. So we'll figure out what's happening. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here with Loki Season 2, Episode 2. We'll be back next week. And again, if you want us to have an outro, just send me something because I got nothing. Bye!